What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the first emergency episode of the season. And tonight, we're going to be talking about the kerfuffle or the perceived issues between Sean Couturier and Matvei Michkov. A lot's been made of this, which is good for people like me because I can create content out of nothing, seemingly, from you guys. So, or whoever, stirring this up, because it's all over Twitter. If you haven't seen it, I assume you had to have, especially if you're tuning into this. But I kind of just want to go over things. I like looking at things from different perspectives, both sides of things. There's always two stories. And I just want to say before I get started here, I'm not in the locker room. I've been in locker rooms, been in the Flyers locker room, but I'm not. And even the reporters today don't know if there's something going on here. They don't know what's going on if there's something going on. But I'm going to try to suss this out. We're going to try to figure out what could potentially be going on between Sean Couturier and Matvei Michkov, if there's anything at all. All we heard last year was Michkov's following Couturier around like a puppy, right? And Couturier's teaching Michkov all this stuff. It sounded like they got pretty close, right? And so I'm gonna try to put a spin or try to figure out if Couturier is frustrated. I'm gonna try to figure out why. Okay, if he's frustrated with Michkov, right? So let's kind of go back in time a little bit here. So let's talk about the issue at hand, where everything kind of started, right? And for me, I saw this during I'm going to try to find the original video here, and then I'll share it with you guys. When I saw this live, I didn't think anything of it, right? But let me just, you know what? I don't think I can show the clip on YouTube, so I'll walk you through it. So a game goes to overtime yesterday, right? And Couturier ends up off sides. They go to the bench. Couturier is clearly frustrated. To me, it looked like he was frustrated with himself, but he happened to glance over in Michkov's direction. Who knows for what? Maybe to have a conversation. It's all assumption. Coots is frustrated with Michkov. Why not dump it in or get across the line quicker? To me, on that play, Michkov didn't look like he did anything wrong. He got into the zone. Couturier, blew the zone. He got in before Michkov. And what I saw on the bench, it looked like Couturier was frustrated with himself. I would assume, because in that instance, how could you be frustrated with Michkov? He was doing what he was supposed to do. Or at least to my knowledge, he was doing what he was supposed to do. Maybe they had something different drawn up. I love the comments, guys. Thanks for everyone pouring in. We'll get to comments towards the end of the episode here. Okay. So that's the play. Then it comes out, I think it was today, Couturier's talking about Michkov. And this is where, if you're not a big Couturier guy, and I don't really know too many people these days that are, it's not so much that they dislike him, that it's just kind of like, Coots isn't what he used to be. And he's here for a long time. So we kind of just got to put up with him kind of thing, right? So for someone like me, I'm a little bit indifferent to Couturier. I recognize that he's not the player that he used to be. And I also accept that he's going to be here for a while. What can I do? It's just the way it is. So anyways, I think Couturier's asked about Michkov. I didn't hear the question. But Couturier talks about how Michkov is a goal scorer. I'm summarizing here. And he's not cheating as much as he used to, which is an interesting thing to say. And that there's more. And look, I say this all the time. There's more to hockey than just scoring goals. And Couturier said, you're not scoring goals every game. There's other ways to help the team win, And I assume that he said this to Michkov and that they've talked to Michkov about this. This hasn't been a known issue for Michkov going back to his KHL days. So if you want to ignore that, That's up to you. You know, there was frustrations about that in the KHL. It was known coming here that Michkov likes to cherry pick. He likes to score goals, and that's fine. It's okay. Whatever team he's on is going to have to, I don't want to say put up with it, but they're going to have to be okay with it. And it sounds like some of these guys are getting a little frustrated with it because they're all putting in the work. They're all doing it. The captain's doing it. Why doesn't Matvei Michkov have to do it? So put yourself in this locker room. 19, 20-year-old kid comes over, loves to score goals. Fans love him. We all want to see Michkov. We want to see him play 20 minutes a night. The problem with that is all he wants to do out there is score goals, and you're not scoring a goal every shift. Okay? That's problem number one if you're in the locker room. Number two, this season, all we hear about is get Michkov more ice time, get Michkov more ice time. And look, there are some people out there that want to say maybe Couturier made his comments out of jealousy. And I'll get to that. Well, I'll address it now because, like, jealous of what? What could Couturier be jealous of Michkov for? And I'll hope to see some of the answers in the chat there. But what would Couturier be jealous of Michkov? So there's two sides, I think. The easy side would be, at least my first thought was nothing. Like, Couturier's already had his NHL career. He's gotten paid. You know, he's got money. He's got all you could ask for, except for the Stanley Cup, of course. But what would he be jealous of? Playing time? The attention that Michkov gets? I don't see Couturier as one of those guys that wants attention. I don't think he likes the attention, the spotlight, if you will. So, okay, let's say that Couturier is jealous. What would it be? Well, let's think back. There's a couple things here. When Couturier was a young kid, when he was a rookie, where did he play? What lines did he play on? Played in bottom six. He played fourth line. Craig Berube was his coach, right? A guy the Flyers wanted to bring back for this team before the Maple Leafs snapped him up. Rick Tocchet was, in the Flyers' eyes, the next best thing or the next thing closest to a Craig Berube. So I guess in saying that, the way that they're being brought up is somewhat similar. Michkov's, I think, defensive game is obviously nowhere near Couturier's, but Couturier wasn't drafted for his defense, if you remember. He was one of the better offensive guys in the draft. And I think he was hurt the year he was drafted, which is why he slipped a little bit in the draft. So anyway, what I'm saying is Couturier, when he came into the league, had to start out playing the tough minutes, the defensive minutes, the minutes nobody wants to play. And for the longest time, we're like, man, why isn't this kid coming up? Mono, thanks, HC. You know, we all wanted to see him play higher up in the lineup, but he put his time in, right? I never heard Couturier complain. Did you guys? So he put his time in, and we know how Couturier's career went. Berube's let go. He moves up in the lineup. He gets to play with G and Jake. First Flyer since John LeClair to put up back-to-back 30-goal, 70-plus point seasons. Not bad. All right. Then also factor in this. Couturier missed almost 2 seasons with back surgery. Didn't even have the opportunity to come into camp healthy and put in the off-season workouts. And when he did, he still wasn't 100%. Even I would argue not even 100% to start last year, right? So when you have a kid, 20 years old, come in out of shape, that would piss me off because I know what I had to do to come into the season healthy and in shape. Everyone else came in shape, right? This kid doesn't like to play. And I love Michkov. I'm just trying to provide another perspective in the event that Couturier is frustrated with Michkov. Michkov doesn't like playing defense. He comes in out of shape for whatever reason. Let's speculate for another show if you want. Would that piss you off if you were a captain? Would that piss you off if you were a teammate? Would that piss you off if you had to go through the shit that you went through for the last 2-3 years? You know, to come into a season healthy, to do what you had to do. Maybe Couturier no longer takes this for granted. You know, when he sees a young kid come in out of shape, it pisses him off. As the captain, he should be pissed off that the team's star player came in fat, overweight, slow, right? Look, we want vocal captains. We want guys that lay down the law, but not when we lay it down on Michkov, I guess, right? I don't know. That's kind of the vibe that I get, at least from fans. And I was going to share some tweets, but I think a lot of the tweets have the video in the retweet, so I'm not going to do that. And it's not to call anybody out, but it's to use for content on the show. So yeah, I guess if Couturier is frustrated, and I'm not saying that I agree with him putting it out in the media for us to hear, because now it looks like there is a problem. There is, we know that hockey especially keeps things in-house, in the locker room. If it's known in the locker room that, hey, Michkov cheats too much, we need him to help out on defense. We need this, we need that. Why do we need to know that? Why does it need to be out? If you want to be mad at Coots for anything, which I'm not, because look what 9 o'clock at night, and I'm talking to you guys, 175 of you. So talk away, Coots. Go for it, dude. You're helping me out. Other than that, maybe he doesn't want to put that out there because it's not helping Michkov to do that. If anything, it hurt him because God forbid you say anything about Matvei Michkov. The slightest thing, people think he's going to leave, right? So it's kind of like, are we babying this guy a little bit? I'm not saying that we need to bash Michkov, but what's good for one is good for the other. What's fair is fair. What's right is right. Michkov is going to score goals. There's no doubt about that. But he doesn't get a pass for being out of shape, for picking cherries while everyone else is playing defense. So, I don't know. That's kind of how I am. I realize that, there are skill guys and you need to treat them differently, but you gotta play defense. You gotta stay in the zone. Give somebody an option for an outlet pass. It can't be 5-on-4 in the offense, in the defensive zone, things like that. I don't know. I just get the sense there's frustration. Like I said, I've seen a couple things about jealousy. I don't know that it's jealousy. Like I said, I'm not sure what he could be jealous of. Couturier never seemed like the flashy kind of guy to me, whereas Michkov wants the attention. And I love that. When's the last time the Flyers had one of those guys? Unfortunately, maybe it does rub some people the wrong way if you don't do the little things that everyone else has to do. So, all right. We are almost 15 minutes here. So let's see what we got in the comments, guys. Hey, we got Ann checking in. Dave checking in. Dave says, what happened? It's always something. Gary Vincelli chimes in. What did I miss? All right, so here's one. Fancy Bruins. The look on Coots' face when he got back to the bench after the offside said a lot. So it seems the majority of people, I think first and foremost, you saw frustration. My question is, with who? Because when I saw it, and maybe I'm like, what I saw was Couturier is the one that blew the zone. He's frustrated with himself. That's what I saw. He was pissed. Like he's a veteran guy, knows better. Still, he beat the puck in. I don't know what he was expecting Michkov to do there. So if he was upset with Michkov, I'm not sure why. Maybe somebody can help me out with that. Then we have Ant chiming in. Michkov came into camp out of shape and admitted to Kurz or whoever else that he stepped away from hockey all summer. Guys worked hard and Michkov slacked off. Yeah, I mean, that would rub me the wrong way. UFO partisan. If nothing at all, Couturier should probably do a better job selling his teammate, not be so forthright with the parasitic press and fans. See, that's interesting. Is this a learning moment for Couturier, or did he do it on purpose? Those are questions that I would ask, and maybe we'll talk about on Tuesday night, because he's been a cap. This is only what, Coots' second, third year as captain. Maybe this is new for him. Yeah. And Chimes, the goal situation's interesting. Watch them celebrate with Jamie and then watch them celebrate with Michkov. Yeah, I've seen that out there. I think that's overanalyzing a little bit, honestly. Because I saw, I mean, they looked like they were happy that Michkov scored. They all gave him fist bumps, yada, yada. Drysdale, well, let me check real quick. I don't think that was his first goal. Maybe it was his second goal. But obviously, okay, yeah, second goal of the year for Drysdale. I know 7 points in 15 games. Coming on. I don't know. It's easier to communicate with Drysdale, so maybe they have better relationships with him, you know? I think he's a fan favorite in the locker room. He's got a lot of buddies in there. Why does a 19-year-old need 4 months of rest? Yeah, I don't know what the plan was there. I'm going to assume they just kept him out of the rink. Because from what it sounds like, he did a lot of bulking up. And what doesn't make sense to me is he wasn't small last year. He was already pretty fit last season. He didn't really need to bulk up, in my opinion. He's a small dude, by the way. I'm 5'10". He's at least a half a head shorter than me. So Michkov is small in size, but he's pretty built. He's a little bowling ball. I don't know that he needed to put on that much muscle. So maybe something happened there, or maybe he did just get fat. I don't know. Here's a good point. This is from Fancy. What I think's frustrating is that every reporter asked about Michkov, and these guys have to answer these questions about a guy who wasn't professional enough to prepare himself for the season. Interesting. Yeah, if you're in that locker room, that would piss you off a little bit, right? It's not exactly like you can ask Michkov these questions every day. All right, let's look here. We're coming to the end. I only wanted this to be 20 minutes or so. We have Zach chiming in. Already was thinking it's time to move on from Coots. Yeah, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. I mean, I think by most accounts, people would think he's doing them a favor if he requested a trade or something. I don't know how you move him. So here's interesting. Flyers purgatory. So look, Kucherov is otherworldly talent, and so is McDavid. So we think Michkov is going to be putting up 120, 130 point seasons. I don't know. The thing with Kucherov and McDavid is they can both skate. They can both move, especially McDavid, obviously. With Bedard, look, I've only watched 2 Chicago games this year, but he's definitely gotten better defensively. He's by no means a Selke candidate, but you can tell that the work has been put in. And we'll see. Maybe that's what they're trying to do with Michkov, you know? And everyone's blowing up on Coots here. So, you know, we'll see. And so AOB, I think, in my opinion, is hitting the nail on the head here. Nothing Couturier said is wrong. He said people are just worried about Michkov's relationship with his teammates. And if people, I think the ones that are kind of stirring stuff up and sharing things and, um, they're providing their own perspectives, which is great. If they would just say this, if this is what they meant, if this is where they're coming from, if this is where they're angry, then I could sit there and say, you know what you're saying is making sense. I get that, you know? But to come from and the things people are saying, and they're kind of just going straight at Coots, and I'm not going to. I was talking to one of my buddies on Twitter, BT. I think BT, if you're watching, hey, buddy. Um, I'm not defending Couturier. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. I'm trying to figure out his perspective. Michkov can seemingly do no wrong in the fans' eyes, So nobody's angry at Michkov. I'm not either. Like, I'm not going to get angry at these guys. They don't pay maybe they do. I don't know. Here's Zach. And I get the worry here. Finally get a potential superstar player, and we want him to turn into a 200-foot player like this has happened the last decade. All right, let's kind of skim through here, and then we'll start to wrap up. There you go. Joe Fisher, I think, remembers what I was talking about here. So Couturier had two centers in front of him, and when he got to play on the second line, he took off. So you don't think he remembers this kind of stuff when he's watching what's happening with Michkov? Who, because he can score goals, it's okay if he cheats once in a while. If it's okay if he does this once in a while, where Couturier was stapled to the bottom six. He had no shot playing top 6 minutes. So, I have to imagine he remembers a lot of that stuff. Johnny Pelican. Yeah. It's insane. It really is. So Johnny Pelican says, where's this narrative even coming from that Couturier hates Michkov? Sounds ridiculous. And it is. Bottom line, it is ridiculous. But people like to stir stuff up. Can't talk about Michkov. Can't say anything negative about Michkov. If I disagree with Couturier anywhere, it's saying what he said. And maybe he had a weak moment where he said things that he wouldn't normally say. But yeah. Okay, we got some weird stuff going on in the chat there. Landro says it probably should have been kept in-house. Seemed a little bit out of character. Yeah, totally agree. A couple great points here by Landros, too. It's a learning experience for Michkov. Probably rubbed some guys the wrong way with the bad summer. But again, we're talking about a 20-year-old. Hope so. One last comment here by our buddy Dave. Whether the message was right or wrong, he was wrong to take a passive-aggressive shot at the kid. Taking shots at Michkov's game is the popular thing to do with the organization. And that's interesting. You have to wonder if there's like a Canadian-Russian rivalry kind of thing going on there. I don't know. Maybe some of the guys up north can fill me in on that. But because Hartnell kind of gives it to him sometimes, and Hartnell can't really talk when it comes to skating and being fast and whatnot, but Hartnell could score goals, that's for sure. All right, boys and girls, we're almost at 300 live viewers. We're almost 25 minutes in, which is a couple minutes more than I was planning on doing tonight. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time on a Sunday night emergency live video to hang out and talk. Sean Couturier and Matvei Michkov. What do you guys think about what we were talking about here? Is it jealousy? Is it just miscommunication, misunderstanding? If Couturier is pissed, does he have a right to be pissed? If you're Michkov, I mean, you're going to be here forever. You can do no wrong. if the organization moves on from Michkov, they're going to lose any fans they still have left. And I just wonder if maybe Michkov knows this as a 20-year-old, because his agents in his, he still has agents. He's a kid. He seems to be mature for his age, but I think this summer was a reminder, at least for me, that this is still a kid. He's going to get into trouble. He doesn't know everything the way that maybe he comes off sometimes. Because to me, he comes off like a stone cold killer, sniper. That's all he wants to do is live and breathe and eat goals. Unfortunately, there's a few more things to do in hockey. You can, how do I say? There's more to winning a hockey game than just scoring goals, which might sound crazy to some people. I don't know. So at that, boys and girls, we're going to wrap this up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Once again, can you give me a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed this, guys? I'll do more of these throughout the year if we can get up to 50, 60 likes on YouTube. So if you're watching on Twitter, thank you very much. Head over to YouTube, give us a subscribe and a like. I'd really appreciate that. In the meantime, boys and girls, don't forget to keep it high, keep it wide. I'll be back Tuesday night with Jack, and keep an eye out tomorrow morning for the NCAA Flyers prospect update. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching HWD Hockey. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.